Why haven't you seen Jurassic Park? How did you miss this in your childhood?
My parents? I don't know.
You have the worst parents.
My parents claim their favorite movie is Top Gun, but I've never seen Top Gun. So that says something about how much my parents care about watching movies.
Did you like Jurassic World?
It was okay.
It was okay. Yeah, that was kind of my thinking. I was like, it's okay. Weirdly, like my main problem with this movie is something that they actually bring up. Like the bad guy dinosaur, if you want to call him the bad guy, is this like genetically engineered dinosaur. He's not a natural animal. It's one that's been completely made up, and they've kept it like in this really small enclosure. When they bring in Chris Pratt, who is like this animal expert, like the first thing he says is, "Oh, you raised it in isolation? That's really not good for its like psychological well-being." And that's all they say about that. Like never at any point in the rest of the film do they acknowledge that like, yeah, we messed up like raising the animal. We didn't treat it right.
There is one part later on where Chris Pratt's character is trying to like explain like why trying to capture it again is like ridiculous, and he's like, because this is an animal that has no concept of what it is in the world, and what it is something that should rightfully kill all of us, but it doesn't know that yet. While it's out there, it's quickly figuring out that it's at the top of the food chain, and so like you can't just like coddle this thing. You gotta kill it.
My point is that the movie recognizes that the issue of like sort of animal cruelty in a way. They realize that that's an issue, but then they drop it in favor of saying, "Oh, this animal is evil because it was genetically engineered."
Yeah, it's not as much they like start saying it's evil, they just completely drop that chain of thought and they're just like, man, you guys kept putting the dumbest shit in this thing, didn't you? Like, you know what? We need a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex that can turn invisible. That sounds like a great idea.
It demonizes the science aspect of it, which I think is completely wrong. They could have done the exact same thing, created the exact same genetically engineered dinosaur, but simply raised it in like a more social atmosphere, treated it well, like Chris Pratt does with his velociraptors. And it would have been perfectly fine. They could have had another attraction for the park and it would have been just fine.
This movie doesn't say too much. This is Jurassic World.
It's mostly about dinosaurs attacking people.
So I'm gonna say it doesn't say much, but what it does say is one thing is that it's kind of about people abusing science. I don't think it's really saying that science is evil there. I don't think it's saying that the problem is science. But then you've got the military guy, or not the military guy. You've got the kingpin who wants to sell out these velociraptors to militaries around the world.
Yeah, and I thought all of that was completely unnecessary. Like the main plot is there's a dinosaur rampaging, and all the military stuff was like kind of secondary.
This movie is just kind of forgettable. Like it never really elevates itself into something. Like it's got cool shit, like a T Rex beating up a mutant T Rex. The performances are good.
It's average. And I don't mean average in like a bad way. It's like a perfectly acceptable, fun movie. I don't regret paying to see it.
I don't regret paying to see it because this movie is one of the highest grossing movies ever. It's worth seeing to see, but I don't think it. I wouldn't call it acceptable.
What makes it unacceptable?
Well, I don't think this is a bad movie. I'm not saying that by not saying it's acceptable. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think that it is. It doesn't do anything, and I think that we should hold art to a standard where we want it to like do something.
Well, what do you mean by do something? Because I'm perfectly fine with movies that don't aspire to say anything. Like the Marvel movies. The Marvel movies don't aspire to
No,
say anything.
no, they do say something. Like Age of Ultron is a movie about these characters interplaying. Like it's about characters, about character relationships. It has a lot of other junk, but what really drives those movies is all the Avengers together. It's character relationships.
The Avengers movies are basically friendship and teamwork are good. That's a Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, not to get too far into that, but I would say that it's less about friendship and teamwork are good, and more just like this is what it's like to like coexist with people and stuff, like to face adversity with people, that sort of thing.
What I mean is that the message of an Avengers movie is very simplistic. It's not trying to say anything too meaningful. In the same way, Jurassic World, it's not like without a message, but it doesn't have anything that meaningful to say. And I think that's fine because it's a movie about dinosaurs attacking people. What's wrong with the movie just wanting to be like fun entertainment?
I don't think it really elevated itself up to be really fun. Like it just sort of washed over me. You could have been smart a little with this movie. Like you could have done something to elevate it to either make it smart and kind of, if not say something meaningful, say something thought provoking enough that you go, oh man, this movie it actually sort of says something.
This movie doesn't say the same thing that Jurassic Park does. Jurassic Park is much more about the science and like whether or not they can actually control this force of nature. Whereas Jurassic World is more about, well, audiences wanted it to be scarier, so we decided to make something scarier. It's more about like the business end and the folly of that mindset. Obviously, that's nothing deep or meaningful or anything, but for a blockbuster action film, it's fine. It's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, it's fine to not go that route, but they could have gone that route.
I feel like you're saying like, I mean, this is a really good cheeseburger, but you're complaining that you didn't get a steak or something.
No, what I'm saying is this is an okay cheeseburger. I went to McDonald's, I ordered a cheeseburger, got a cheeseburger. I want the person making the cheeseburger to try to like make a cheeseburger that would make them, it would make them feel like they had really set out to make a really great cheeseburger. And this movie feels like they set out to make a very profitable cheeseburger. What I was hoping for was like some spunk or something. Like this movie's just fine for what it is, and I'm sure kids will love it. And I'm sure people who are around my age, just a bit older, who really love the first movie, I'm sure they got a huge kick out of this. Because I'm sure if you watched the original Jurassic Park when you were a kid and like you have a very strong emotional connection to the idea of raptors and everything, seeing the Indominus Rex being, I would like to point out that the Indominus Rex is the only name we know in this fucking movie except for Claire.
Well, that's interesting because naming it Indominus Rex was like in the movie is like purely a marketing thing, so it worked.
Yep. I'm sure if you had that strong association with a T-Rex and a raptor, because I'm sure for a lot of kids who are slightly older than me, I'm 20, so I was 1 when Jurassic Park came out, so I wouldn't really have connections like other people would. But with these people who have very strong connections to their childhood with raptors and Tyrannosaurus Rexes, pulling out that T-Rex at the end to kill the Indominus Rex, that had to be pure fucking awesome in the like most childish, gleeful, cheeseburgery way.
I thought it was a fine movie, but the final action scene is the only part where it started to annoy me because it was like, oh, they're bringing out the T-Rex now. It's fan service time.
I feel like that scene was one of my favorites in the movie because there's nothing really intelligent and highbrow about what if there was a theme park with dinosaurs and then the dinosaurs start chasing everyone. Like this is about as elementary school fantasy as you can get.
Sure, but you can take an idea like that and handle it in a way that doesn't seem stupid. And I think most of the movie deals with it in a way that isn't stupid until, that part.
But my thing is that I feel that last scene really embraces just being stupid. This is a movie that is based on like just a child fantasy concept. Like that's the entire core of this movie. And so I just enjoy at the end they're just like, you know what, fuck it. This is a Jurassic Park sequel. This is basically a movie about kids' fantasies. We're going to have all the dinosaurs fight each other. I think that's cool.
The kids in this movie are better than the kids in the first Jurassic Park. I'm sure someone will hate me for saying that, but it's true. The kids in the first Jurassic Park are insufferable.
I felt like the kids just shouldn't be in the damn movie.
The kids have more of a plot purpose in the first movie, whereas in this one they don't. But like the actual kids themselves didn't bother me that much. Except for that one scene.
Which one scene?
The divorce scene.
I didn't think that was that bad.
Okay, these kids, there's the teenager and then the younger kid, he's like 10 or something. They go to the park and the younger kid is really excited. He's so into dinosaurs. He is so happy and excited to be at this amusement park. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a scene where he's crying and he reveals to his teenage brother that he found out their parents are getting a divorce. And then this never comes up again. It never is brought up in any dialogue for the rest of the movie that their parents are getting a divorce.
I get bored just listening to you describe this kid's character. I don't give a shit about these kids.
The kids are fine. They didn't bother me. Their lack of character, I did not find annoying. They didn't need a character, in my opinion.
I don't think the movie needed them. I think the only reason the movie had them was to try to appeal to
No.
children.
Well, there are a lot of things this movie didn't need. This movie didn't need Vincent D'Onofrio. It didn't need the kids. It could have just functioned with Chris Pratt and Lady Person. I would say this is like a cheeseburger from like Five Guys or something. A pretty good cheeseburger. What restaurant is this cheeseburger from, in your opinion?
I don't eat meat.
If you did eat meat, rate this cheeseburger.
This cheeseburger's like a 3. Like, I mean, if I'm hungry and I just want a burger, I'd eat this cheeseburger. But like, it's not a bad cheeseburger. It just, I feel like this cheeseburger doesn't have heart.